All right, let's jump right into this explainer. When we think of the UN Environment Program, or UNEP, we immediately picture these massive global summits, multi-billion-dollar climate initiatives, and frankly, world-changing environmental mandates. The scale is just staggering. But behind all those massive outward-facing initiatives is this incredibly intricate, high-stakes operational engine, dealing with some very gritty realities. So today, we're going to unpack the official strategic toolkit of the leader who actually keeps that complex engine running.
Think about the ultimate paradox for a second. How exactly do you balance massive, rapid global action with strict, down-to-the-penny financial accountability? How can an organization act fast enough to literally save the planet while simultaneously accounting for every single dollar, euro, or yen provided by its donors? It's a constant daily tug-of-war between the urgent need for operational speed and the absolute non-negotiable reality of financial compliance. Enter our central role for today, the D1 Deputy Director of the Corporate Services Division. They act as what's called the Executive Integrator. And listen, this isn't just some standard administrative job. They are literally the guardian of UNEP's corporate interest. Their absolute superpower is balancing institutional risk with operational execution. They are the essential bridge that connects that high-level environmental mandate to the super detailed reality of budgets, massive audits, and complex daily operations happening across multiple continents. To see how this executive integrator pulls this off, we'll be covering 5 distinct phases today. 1. The ultimate balancing act. 2. The strategic operating model. 3. Navigating risk and controls. 4. Leading people through change. And 5. Building long-term resilience. Starting off with Section 1, the ultimate balancing act.
There's a quote that hits the nail on the head here. Corporate services often sit at the point of tension between speed, flexibility, and control. It's so true, right? When an environmental crisis hits, program managers on the ground want to deploy funds yesterday to make an immediate impact. But the oversight bodies, they naturally demand rigorous checks and balances to prevent any misuse. The deputy director basically lives right inside that tension, and they're tasked with translating that friction into actual forward momentum without breaking any rules.
So the key here is drawing a hard line in the sand between actual control and just bureaucracy. True control provides essential safeguards. It genuinely protects accountability, mitigates risk, and keeps the organization out of harm's way. Bureaucracy, on the flip side, is stuff like manual data reentry, endless meetings, or duplicate approvals. If it doesn't materially reduce risk or improve decision quality, it's bureaucracy, and it needs to be ruthlessly simplified. Moving right along to Section 2, the strategic operating model. Look, the best operating models completely obliterate silos. You can't have strategy, workforce planning, and internal controls sitting on separate islands that never talk to each other. The deputy director completely integrates all of these functions along with data and business processes. Everything has to flow seamlessly together. Why? To ensure high-quality intergovernmental reporting, to foster real organizational learning, and ultimately to guarantee absolute donor confidence. You just can't achieve that if these elements are operating in a vacuum. But you can't just mash these departments together once and hope it sticks. You need a serious, highly disciplined management rhythm. We're talking a strict heartbeat for the organization, weekly operational reviews to put out immediate fires, monthly financial and performance analysis to check your momentum, quarterly strategic reviews for those big picture course corrections, and periodic deep dives into the really complex stuff, like trust funds and process efficiency. That relentless rhythm, that's what stops surprises from sneaking up on you. Now, how do you actually measure performance in that rhythm? Well, leadership has to pivot hard from reactive lagging indicators to proactive leading indicators. Think about it. Lagging indicators, like financial variances, bad audit findings, or outright control failures, they only tell you what blew up yesterday. Leading indicators, like ensuring approvals, reconciliations, and training are happening exactly on time, they tell you if the organization is actually healthy today. Focusing on those leading metrics lets you kill problems before they even materialize. And how do busy executives digest all this data? Honestly, a 100-page static report is practically useless because nobody reads it. Instead, they use a concise, living one-page dashboard. It instantly gives you the current status, the financial position, and the highest risks. But most importantly, it highlights overdue decisions and milestones, literally naming the owner and the exact next action required. This forces intense accountability and lightning-fast decisions. You only write deep analytical notes when a specific decision actually demands them. All right, Section 3, Navigating Risk and Controls. If you take nothing else away from this explainer, remember this one critical concept. Internal control has to be embedded right into the process design, not just slapped on at the end. If you build a process and then stick a massive compliance check at the finish line, you're just creating a bottleneck. But if the control is naturally woven into the workflow, compliance happens automatically just by doing the job. Yes, process simplification is huge, but it can never, ever weaken things like segregation of duties or data integrity. Those are absolutely foundational. So to make sure these controls actually work, there's a highly specific 5-step sequence. First, you identify the key risks. Second, set the exact control objective for each one. Third, assign a responsible control owner. Zero ambiguity there. Fourth, establish what evidence of performance actually looks like. And fifth, define the precise escalation point for exceptions. That last step is a game changer. It guarantees that every single risk has a documented tripwire that instantly wakes up executive leadership when things go off track. And you need really explicit thresholds for those escalations, especially for the high-damage scenarios. We're talking severe financial exposure, material deviations from your budget, scary audit findings, major implementing partner risks, or alarming delays in major reporting. By setting these triggers in advance, senior management gets a vital early warning rather than a late explanation. Because let's be real, in a massive global organization, a late explanation usually means you're already in a full-blown crisis. That brings us to Section 4, leading people through change. Because anytime you change a process, you're really changing human behavior. You can't just email out a new policy memo and expect institutional transformation. Any major reform needs a comprehensive change management plan. You have to map out exactly who's affected, what new behaviors you need, your core messaging, and the training required. Crucially, you also need to define adoption indicators and anticipate exactly where people are going to resist so you can build in feedback loops to catch those issues early. And when we talk about capacity building, tossing a thick rulebook at someone just doesn't work. It demands practical examples, realistic decision trees, usable templates, and real case applications. We have to treat capacity building as a core part of the implementation itself. You're literally equipping managers to apply these super strict requirements to real-world, high-pressure situations. But none of this matters without the right leadership culture. The deputy director has to walk the talk. They need to model calm judgment, consistent application of the rules, and a willingness to actually explain the why behind decisions. Most importantly, they need the courage to tackle hard problems early on. Delegating authority is useless if you aren't coaching your people. You have to respectfully challenge the organization to be better while standing firm on compliance. Finally, Section 5, building long-term resilience. If you pull all of this off over the long term, the results go way beyond just cleaner spreadsheets. You're looking at massive organizational transformation. You get greater predictability, tighter compliance, and processes that are incredibly fast but still strictly controlled. This leads to a massive boost in management confidence, way better intergovernmental reporting, transparent resource decisions, and ultimately, absolute ironclad trust with your donors and program managers around the world. And this brings us to the absolute core of the matter, the why. All this financial stewardship, process redesign, and data integration, it has absolutely zero value in a vacuum. Corporate activity has strategic value only when it strengthens the organization's ability to actually deliver on its environmental mandate responsibly, efficiently, and transparently. Every single bit of efficiency gained is another precious resource freed up to tackle the most pressing environmental challenges on the planet. So I want you to think about your own workplace for a second. Take a look at the machinery running behind the scenes and ask yourself, are your organization's controls actually protecting its mandate or just slowing it down? Is your internal bureaucracy building true institutional resilience, or is it just creating more friction? It's a question every single leader in every organization needs to answer. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the tough questions.